finally. It's been such a struggle.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what the disconnect was.
I believe sometimes stuff just doesn't work out until it works out, and then you just have to keep going.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
What time is it over there, by the way? Did I wake you too early in the morning?
It's 6:15. I usually get up at 5 o'clock, so yeah, that's no problem.
Oh, okay, cool. I wake up at 4 in the morning, and so I start to write or read something, and then from there move on to do some creative stuff or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what I do. Let me close this one thing. Okay, so we're good now. Hello, how you doing? I hope you're well. Thank you for joining me for this session. Friendship is a very challenging thing, especially in these times. Over the years, friendship has become a really hard and challenging thing to define, and to get actual genuine friendship has become really, really, really hard in the age of social media. And recently, as the world has just lost its mind and fallen off its axis, friendship and family is one and two of those things that will hold us together. But it's very rare that you hear people find friendship online, on social media. But that's what happened to us. Over time, we have formed a collective of friends who share coffee and cut videos. And these are very accomplished people who are all over the world, from all over the world, and doing really awesome stuff. My guest is one of those of my friends in the collective, our Twitter collective, really. Please join me in a conversation with my friend, a noted musician and an amazing good guy all around. His name is Stan Stewart. You can find his music at musefornow.com. That's MUZ for the number NOW.com. Musefornow.com. Here is my conversation with Stan Stewart. So what's your day like when you wake up in the morning?
It varies. So, big change in my life right now is that we had a dog. We had a dog in our household.
Yeah.
And she was a dog that we adopted on April 11th, so during the shelter in place. Long story short is that she injured one of our grandsons.
Oh boy.
And so we had to take her back to the rescue where we got her. She was in our household from April 11th, and that happened on Monday. I say that because, one of the things that's changed is my mornings used to be defined partially by the fact that I would wake up and Sky the dog would come to me and I would pet her for a while, and then I would take her out for a walk. And it had become sort of like my meditation, and she was teaching me so much and stuff. And so I had this rhythm in the mornings, and it's like when you're creating a song, if the drummer starts a beat, it creates a very, clear pattern that the music is going to follow. And that was kind of how my days were. They had this clear pattern where I would just know, okay, this is how my day is going to start, because Sky is going to walk into my office. I know that's my cue to pet her for a while and then take her out for a walk. I'm kind of looking for a new rhythm. It's sort of like she was my drummer in the morning, and now I'm looking for a new drummer.
Sky was with you for a very short period of time, but you had this regimen, or kind of like a ritual in the morning. So how bad does that set you back?
Oh, it doesn't set me back. It just, because, every time that there's a change, it's an opportunity to just check and see what's important right now. And that's the thing that seems, incredibly beautiful about this shift. Of course, I'm incredibly sad that she's not here anymore. It broke our hearts to have to take her back to the rescue. We had to just, talk it through and figure out that the grandsons are the priority
Yeah.
in our life. However much we love Sky, that we had to, make them the top priority, and understandable. So I think you can understand why that would be the case.
Yeah.
But so the thing that I was saying when we lost the connection before is that there are some constants in my morning. One of them is coffee. I'm a long-time coffee addict. I've tried, several times to quit the habit, and each time I come back to it. And so I'm no longer trying to quit. I'm just accepting the fact that it's something that I love, and it's something that is one of my rituals. So coffee is a constant. Being quiet for a while is definitely a part of my morning. I try to do something to connect with nature, with the outside, as early as I can in the morning. Like I said, I'm kind of just looking for a new rhythm. My new drummer is on the way.
Interesting.
Just met her or him yet.
Awesome. One thing that I've noticed, and people should know that we met on Twitter and we formed this group. I don't even know, how did we even form that group? We just people with common interest, and we started sharing videos of coffee for some of us and cuts, and we just formed a community, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it was just organic. I don't know that there was anything else, particularly. And I don't know if it was, I suppose there were some common interests, but there was also just, if there was a clear common interest, it was probably just, let's connect with people. Let's be real with people. I think that was probably the most connecting piece for me. And I'm really glad that you and I were part of those, because some of those connections haven't sort of grown into something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, true.
That just stayed about coffee or stuff like that, or the weather.
Yeah.
But you and I started talking about art and about creative process and stuff like that. And that to me, or just like we share a photo of something that we had recently photographed, and one or the other of us would then respond about the beauty of the photo or the way that we had captured the angle, things like that. And that made me know that you and I had ways to go deeper, and that to me is the that I'm really looking for in connections, is that ability to go to the next layer, not just stay with the surface stuff, like, oh, it's raining out, or it's really hot, and that it has been really hot here. That was the thing that intrigued me, was that ability to just connect with those, additional interests, those ways of thinking, especially with the creative process, because that's always intrigued me, and always been something that I'm curious about. Why does people follow a creative path and people don't? What is it that feeds me? What is it that inspires me? So all that stuff, really interests me, and that's one of the things that kept me wanting to connect with you.
Wow, amazing. One thing that I've always pursued in my life for a very long time is deeper connection with people, and also just trying to learn people's culture and people's habit, and then finding people that do not agree with you necessarily, but also just trying to support your creativity or have a different way of thinking, and probably that opens up your mind too. So there's that, but it's not one thing. It's just people are human beings. Can we find stuff that's common to us, and they appreciate the differences, because that's a thing, One thing that I want to rally back on is you have grandchildren, yet you pursue a very creative path. And a lot of people struggle at a certain point in their lives and they have to go get what they call serious jobs. What would you tell people like that right now? Because a lot of people now realizing those opportunities are not there anymore, and the stuff that was inside of them, the creativity inside of them, is what they can get into right now. What would you tell them?
Well, The thing I would say is there's always an opportunity to pursue creativity, because creativity is whatever we frame it to be. Cooking a meal, somebody else, it might be writing a piece of music. For somebody else, it might be just the way that I set up my office so that it makes more sense for me and works better for my job or things like that. So there's a million different ways. Someone else will do it by gardening. Someone else will do it by the way that they paint their house, or different, just every single possibility. The way that creativity is basically just solving a problem in a way, or solving a dilemma in a way that that you hadn't thought of before. That's all creativity is. So, it doesn't matter if it's writing a piece of music. It doesn't matter if it's, cooking a meal. Whatever it is, it's always about just how am I going to put the pieces of the puzzle together? I'm choosing to put them together in a way that I just hadn't thought of before. And that's why I say, it can even be rearranging rearranging the furniture in a room could be a creative endeavor for some people. It might not be for everybody. The other thing that I will say is I have a day job. I actually have a fairly demanding IT job, information technology. So I work for, a large IT organization. I do a specific job within that framework. It's a pretty wild ride. And so the things like making music are in addition to that. And that's one of the tricks. In addition to having a day job and wanting to do my creative pursuits, I have a relationship, I have a house that I have to help keep up, just all the things that everybody has, all those different things that, fill the time in our lives, especially in this time of shelter in place as I age. There's a lot to fill our life.
One of the questions I would like to ask you is, how do you manage the balance? Now there's shelter in place, but before that, you had to leave the house and do all these other things. And you say your job is very demanding, but then you still have to come back home and have your family and also pursue your creative stuff, your music, your photography, all this stuff. How do you find balance? Because a lot of people are suffering with balance. Last week, I think the last 3 weeks I've been suffering with burnout, so I just decided to switch off. And I'm only coming back and sitting by the river and doing family things and cooking. That helps me. How do you find balance?
It requires constant attention. So I can never for a moment assume that things are perfectly in balance, because as soon as I do, something will alert me to the fact that they're probably not. It's not a matter of finding balance. I think it's a matter of always being in the process of seeking it. So I'm always looking for the center, because, the center is where I can get balance. If I can find the center. So imagine I'm a tightrope walker. If I, for a second, put both feet off of the tightrope, guess what? I'm down. Gravity takes over, and I'm no longer up on the tightrope. Fortunately, in life, the path and the options are much wider than a rope. And yet still, if I go too far off, that center of the path, I'm going to literally be, as they say in my country, out in the weeds.
That's a common phrase even, yeah.
I'm going to be kind of no longer attending. No, I'm not going to be looking at what I'm trying to get to anymore. I'm just going to be like out there in the forest or whatever, and just kind of looking around at the trees, because all of a sudden I'm not going to be able to see my way forward on the path. And so that's kind of how I see balance is. It's always something that I want to be attentive to. And when I'm not, there are things that will call me back, like the people in my life, like the fact that I'm lost, like, all these different things. Now that I've, been practicing this for a while, is if I find myself doing the same thing repeatedly and getting no result, then I know I'm totally out in the weeds. In other words, let's say I just keep trying to tune up my computer so that it's tuned better for recording. If I just do that repeatedly, and every time I go into record, I still get funny little glitches and stuff. Well, it means I'm no longer actually tuning my computer. I'm just wasting my time. I'm out in the weeds, just waiting for something to change, and it's not. And so now I really know, I need to call myself back to the center. Like, what am I focused on? What do I want to get? That was a lot of work.
but it's okay. That's why we're here. And building up on that, have you ever suffered from social expectation, probably when you're younger? And is it something you're dealing with right now? Or is something that it doesn't cross your mind, you know? You care what people think, or people, the social pressures and stuff?
It always affects me. Certainly less so than it did in earlier years, because over the years I've learned to more and more honor my own inner authority, and it still rises up to bug me on occasion. So ironically, one of the people who was in those chats that we always have on Twitter, long story short, she attacked my brand because I thought we were friends. I reached out to her and said, "Hey, what's going on here? Can you help me understand this?" And after a while, it became clear after their responses that, nothing was going to repair the relationship. And the reason this ties in is, for a long time, I tried to figure out a way that I could mend, that I could try to, figure it out and understand why it had happened. And there's a part of me that honors that part of me that wanted to do that. And then by the same token, I know that there's also that element that you're talking about, that fear of missing out, that social expectation thing of, not just wanting to understand why the friendship had fallen away, but wanting to understand from the perspective of, how can I keep my friends and fans in a more complete way? And so I really had to continually learn to let go of that. And it's just one example of worrying about what other people think. Like I said, it's definitely dissipated over the years, prevalent as it used to be, but it's still there.
Wow. So let's talk about your music, because you're a musician. You told us about your IT work, but also I know you as a musician, as a creative person. When did you start your music? At what age? And is it something you came to like, or you just had it from day one?
How to tell the story. I don't know exactly what age I was at, but some of my earliest memories are of playing the piano in quotes, because as a child, I have no idea. I don't remember what I was playing exactly. I just was, touching the keys and making sounds, exploring what different sounds I could make and stuff like that. So the thing I would say, though, is that when I was about 6.5, my parents were listening to what I was playing. I just remember my mom saying, "Okay, it's obvious that we have to send him to piano lessons." And in those days, of course, that was the response. If a child showed a knack for something, it's like, send them to classes, send them to a teacher, or whatever. So they did. They sent me to a piano teacher. In many ways, the way that they taught piano in those days kind of sent me off into a different direction. What I see, probably 10 or 15-year voyage from when I was 6.5, it took me about that long before I was able to get to the point where I was kind of coming back where I'd been at 6.5. So what I mean by that is that when I was 6.5, I was basically just creating from nothing. I was just, composing music or improvising music, whatever you want to call it, on the piano to just make the sounds that I wanted to hear. And of course, when I went to a private teacher, that teacher, all those different teachers, wanted to teach me things like classical music and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I learned a ton from taking those lessons. But at the same time, it also veered me off of the path of my own voyage of discovery. So I had to kind of find my way back there over a decade or more. Really what it brought me to, started to bring towards this whole concept of creating spontaneously or improvising, so that instead of, composing a set piece, my main approach was to create in the moment, even with the little hiccups and stuff that happen when I'm doing that, because when I'm creating spontaneously, my technique isn't always perfect because I don't know what notes coming next. And so, my fingers I haven't trained my fingers to go in a certain direction yet, because it's just happening right as I'm doing it. And so occasionally there'll be like a little misstep or a little flub on one of the notes. To me, is part of gem, the joy of spontaneous creation is that all of that becomes part of it, and all of that becomes part of the sound. So that's maybe more than you wanted to hear, but that's
that's perfect. One of the things I really like is process, because for most of our lives, we've never seen process. We hear of how people have gotten to their level of success and all that, but we're not aware of how you bake the cake. We just see the cake. And for me, process is really important because it shows you how people come to who they are, because it doesn't happen overnight. One of my favorite quotes is, instant success takes about 20 years to attain. So... Yeah, because people think it's instant. Even coffee. I mean, now there's a great trend where everybody is doing coffee and stuff. And one thing that I like that with the kids I've taken up is it's a process. It's just not instant coffee anymore. They do the process, and as they do the process, it's a metaphor for all these other things. Now that you're sheltering in place and that kind of thing, how has your music been affected? Or has it been affected?
Oh, yeah. I mean, life always affects what I create. So when life changes, so does the music. It'll be interesting to look back on this time and be hopefully a little more clear about how it affected my music. But ironically, there are so many other things that are also affecting the music. So just like always happens, the presence of a dog in our household changed things. My interactions in nature are a huge inspiration. So all of those things also continue. And so there are some constants, there are some changes. I think if I had to say, so my guess right now, because I'm in the middle of it, and I might have a different perspective, when this is all over, I don't know, maybe a year or two down the road, I might be able to look back and say 30, but right now, I would say the general change has been a sense of introspection, maybe even sad, because of all the things that I'm missing, the things that we used to do, or, like gigs and stuff like that all of those things, I'm mourning the loss of those things. So there's definitely been a lot of that feeling, hey, I miss this thing that I used to love to do. I think that's the thing that's most clear.
Wow, amazing. I just remembered, I was listening to this album, and she made an album in their house. This was, I think, a couple months back. And the dog was part of that collaboration. So she left in all the noises and the stuff, and it was a really great project. I can't remember the artist at the moment, but it's one of those projects I just like to put the headphone on and just put it on loud and just go for a walk and that kind of thing. But also, I really miss concerts. I love massive concerts and massive movie theaters and that kind of things. And also just being outdoors, just the freedom, just wake up in the morning and go like, I want to go to this part of the country, whatever, or the world, so, So now what has your workflow and your creativity become in these days that we have this virus?
Well, there's sort of two different processes. If I'm doing piano improvisations, the process is fairly streamlined. It's basically what's inspiring me in the moment, play the piece with the recording software turned on, and then go through the whole technical process to mix it and master it and, prep it for publishing on the streaming services and all that kind of stuff. So that one's fairly streamlined. At least it sounds like when I just say it like that. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into it from the inside out. For example, I hardly ever throw away a improvisation, but occasionally I'll finish playing something and I'll just go, oh, that was nice to play, but nobody ever really needs to hear that. That's fairly rare, but I've noticed it's happened a few times in the past, since shelter in place. But the other style or, approach, if it's a song or a full-blown composition, I will do a little bit more crafty. I will say, okay, what kind of beat do I want to have? Do I know what time signature to put in? Do I want to just create it on the fly? What kind of instruments do I want to have? That process takes a little bit longer because then I have to assemble the various, virtual or live instruments I'm going to use and all that kind of stuff. And then I can start recording. And I usually compose on the fly, but occasionally I'll actually compose something, like I'll maybe even write up some music notation or things like that, and then go and perform it, into the recording software. That's especially true when it's a song, meaning got sung lyrics. So I don't know if you're familiar with, I do custom songs. It's that I call present songs, where I compose a piece or a song, somebody to give to a friend or a loved one. And those require additional questions and craft and stuff like that, because I want that inspiration come from the song, from the person that I'm writing. And so I ask a bunch of questions, of the person who's giving the song, and that will feed the style of the song, the kind of beat, the framework, if it's going to be really upbeat or if it's going to be kind of mellow, all those different things come into play. The inspiration for the song is so specific and connected to this particular person that I'm writing the song for.
Interesting. And I'd like to take you back to throwaway and the throwaway culture. I was just looking at the catalog of Prince. I mean, they open his studio. The estate is trying to release the works that, and Prince was very specific. He didn't want certain works to be released. But then I also went to the contrast, and Dolly Parton has this library where she says for the next 100 years, there'll be samples and things you can use. As a creative, and this is something I suffer from, I want stuff to be perfect, but then you never know how it's going to be perceived in the real world. I think one time when I was writing poetry and I was doing this piece, and somebody asked me what it means, and I tried to explain, and this other person said, you should never explain the work, just put it in the world and let it get its own feet. That has been very liberating for me, because now I don't have the pressure of what this is. You know what I mean?
I think I do know what you mean. I know that that's part of why improvisation is so attractive to me, because I don't want to be stuck in that perfectionistic trap. And for me, it is a trap. I'm not saying it is for everybody, but for me, perfectionism is all about growing what I create naturally, I'll say. So my natural verve for, creating, especially music, is sufficient. It's adequate. Is it perfect? No. Is it better than so-and-so? No. It's just adequate and exactly what needs to come out of me. And that's the thing that I find to be liberating, as you said, is to just go, okay, that I had that little flub on the piano or in my voice or whatever. That becomes part of music. Like you said, this artist who captured the sound dog in the background, kept that as part of the recording. To me, that's part of the beauty of the creative process. Now, can those things become a distraction if they're too messy? Sure, they can. Or if they defy possibility that I actually know my craft. So, for example, I had somebody approach me on Twitter not too long ago, and they said, "Oh, will you listen to my music?" I said, "Well, no, I don't really do that anymore because, I get several of those a day and I can't do it all day." And so but there are a couple of services that will offer to listen to your music and critique it for you. And so I pointed them to a couple of those. He, of course, found me on one of those services. And so then he, paid me a tiny amount to review one of his songs. When it gets to that extent, of course, it's a little different. But when it's just about creating for ourselves or creating with a sense of craft without perfectionism, then I think it's beauty. I think those are the moments where I really experience, fabulous beauty. I don't know if you've heard of the pianist named Keith Jarrett.
Yeah, I've heard of.
In some of the very extended, like he would do 45-minute, extended improv, pre-improv. People who the naysayers would say, "Oh, well, he flubbed 3 different notes, and why would you put up with that? 45 minutes only to hear him flub a couple of notes." And I just thought all the beautiful things that he crafted along the way that he moved it, and the way that the very ending of the piece was an exact replica, not the same notes, but an exact replica of what he played at the very beginning. How does an artist creating in the moment remember from 45 minutes ago enough to recreate that at the end of the 45 minutes? That to me is just spectacularly creative. Like I said, I admire him. He's one of my icons. So I love that kind of creating. And you can hear it in my voice. Well, I don't know if you can over technology and stuff, but I'm very excited and passionate about this.
Yeah, I hear the excitement. Would you want to meet him? And also, would you like to go to collaborate with him? Because I don't know what I feel about meeting my heroes, but I have different heroes. So, would you work with your heroes and, or you just want to adore them from a distance?
It would be great to meet Keith Jarrett. I mean, I've met a couple of my heroes over the years. I met David Byrne backstage one time. Unless it's going to become like a mentorship or something like that, I don't know that I hunger for those things the way that I used to. I can remember when I was a teenager, I wanted to meet Peter Gabriel in the worst way. It was such a hunger. I wanted it so badly. Not only did I have, all the usual walls between me and he, but, for so many years, I had this whole ocean also between he and I, because I lived in the United States during most of that time. And then I remember my father got a job in Glasgow, Scotland, so the whole family moved there. And I remember one of the first things I thought to myself, now I can meet Peter Gabriel for real, because I'm on the same, landmass that he is. I still have never met Peter Gabriel in person, by the way.
What happened?
What's that?
What happened? You never met him? It would have been nice to meet him.
I was a kid. I didn't really know how to make that dream happen. And I was also really distracted with everything from girls to the little rock bands that I was playing in. So there were just too many distractions, too many, and also beautiful things. Those things were, incredibly beautiful parts of my growing up as well. It was really sort of just a magical wish. It wasn't a wish that I was going to make come true. It was kind of one of those thoughts of, the world should just give this kind of teenage things. But nowadays, I don't know, unless it was going to be some kind of mentorship where, I was going to be able to hang with them for like 2 months or something and watch everything they do, and they were going to show me the ropes and, or talk to me about their creative process, all these different things. Unless it was going to be something like that, I don't know that it would be all that attractive to me these days. It's not that I want to watch them from afar, but it's just that chance meeting or that backstage style of meeting is not as attractive to me these days. It's sort of like, it'd be nice to say that I met Peter Gabriel in person, but not enough so that I'm going to go seek after it. Like I said, unless it's going to be something a larger magnitude, like a mentorship. Because the irony is, all of these artists that I've admired over the years have been my mentors. Especially in this day, people like David Byrne and Peter Gabriel, not so much Keith Jarrett, he's very private, but some of those other artists quite happy to put out behind the scenes videos and all this kind of stuff. And of course I watch those because they intrigue me and they bring me joy and they inspire me to do my own thing. And so I love watching those. And that's part of the beauty of the age we live in, is that we get to see those things even from creators who aren't necessarily in our backyard. It used to be that unless the artist was in your backyard, you see what they were actually doing behind the scenes. Nowadays, we can go onto their website or their YouTube channel or whatever, and we can see all kinds of things, what they're doing, how their creative process is. The other thing is, a lot of the artists that I've admired over the years are getting, older. And a lot of them aren't creating as much as they used to. Or if they are, they're doing remakes of their previous, work and that kind of thing. And I want to respect and honor the fact they're kind of letting their career wind down. I really want to be respectful of that. It won't be too long before people are expecting that of me. So,
yeah, but Stan, I think there is value of being in the room. Like for example, when I was a kid, I met De Niro, and I think I was 5 or 6, and it was so beyond human, not beyond human, but in terms of he was an actor who I've watched on TV and in a movie. And also Giancarlo, Breaking Bad and those kind of things. Something funny, you talked about Peter Gabriel, and only yesterday I was going back to my back catalog and looking at the records. I remember this song, Don't Give Up, and it's such a classic to this day. Just the thing of being in the room. I know playing records and us doing this online is a thing right now, but I think the moment we can travel, I think that human connection, that you're in the room with somebody and you're vibing and doing a workshop together, or doing a music workshop, playing and just improvising. I think that is such a human thing that if you've never experienced it, you can't explain it. And if you have, you cannot unsee it or unfeel it. I don't know. It's insane.
So I agree with you. I want those connections. And if the connections with some of the more famous people became a reality, I would definitely pursue that. I think the connections that I'm looking for on a deeper and level are the ones that are going to be ongoing. I want to connect with the people who are either local or who, like you and I, have such a deep connection in our passion for the creative process, different things like that connect us. Those are the things that I want to focus on and embellish in what I'm doing with my time and my life and my relationships, is those kinds of things. So I want to really enhance the friendships that I have that are local, or actually meet up with people, or that are, like I said, or like you and I, where we have such a deep connection in our common passion that it can, feed both our connection with each other and our individual pursuits of the creative work.
It does make a lot of sense, Do you feel pessimistic or optimistic at this moment, given where we are and given where we're going?
Because I'm talking with you right now, I feel optimistic. No, that's really true. It will come in waves. Because I'm talking with you right now, I'm feeding off of your, passion for this kind of work. And so I can go to the place of hopefulness and expectation and inspiration. And then in another moment, when I'm thinking about, I can't actually go meet up with my friends. Geez, tonight would have been a great night to go out and have a drink with my buddy, but the bar isn't open. Things like that will maybe take me down a bit. So the pessimism and the optimism kind of come in waves. I think I mostly am tending to be an optimist, and occasionally, I feel the reality kind of pulling me back days with shelter in place and all that. I did have a set of friends, there are a couple, who actually came down with the virus. I'm happy to say they did not. They are recovering. But, they have been sharing with me and others about how incredibly debilitating the virus was. When I hear stories like that, it's really, really hard to stay on the hopeful edge because, so I'm 60 years old and I'm, just kind of on the cusp, being in the age group that's more at risk. I'm just aware of that. It becomes part of that edge of trying to stay in the hopeful side, even though some aspects of reality might be trying to pull me into the pessimism.
Sorry about your friend. At least they're recovering. Do you struggle with mortality? Are you scared of mortality?
I don't think I'm scared of mortality on a day-to-day basis. It certainly informs my behavior because I know that one of the things that occasionally I'll hear, even if it's only in the back of my thoughts, is, oh, it's good that I'm getting this, whatever it is, published, or good that I'm distributing this out to the streaming services because you never know how much longer it's going to be. When I was 22, I didn't know how much longer it was going to be either. So I don't know that I would call it afraid, but mortality definitely, informs me. I have a friend, used to be an occupational coach. The thing that he would always say to me is, remember, a lifetime is not a long. Really what he meant by that is live now. Now is the time that you have to be alive, to do what you want to do. If you aren't doing it, you don't know if you're going to have tomorrow to do it. So,
and that's interesting because we all get to go one way. However, what inspires your life now and your purpose? What inspires that at the moment?
The two constant inspirations to me are, first of all, my wife. This is not the first time I've been married, but it's definitely the best time. She's just an incredible human being. My love for her and my admiration for the things that she brings to the whole world and to our relationship specifically inspire me constantly, really, literally every day. And the second thing would be nature. I'm fortunate enough to live out in the country where I can literally just walk out the back door and be out in the wood. There's a stream and a little waterfall right in our backyard. I'm starting to discover that stream more and more these days. But I also love to long walks or the bike rides that take me, out further afield into all the different parts of the woodlands and the hills and the lakes. They're in my region here. So I live in the Finger Lakes region of New York. It's so incredibly beautiful here. There are so many fantastic forests and lakes and stuff like that. So the lake that's only about half mile from our house is 30 miles long. It's it's a large lake. All that definitely is a huge inspiration, constant inspiration, whether I'm just looking out the window at it or whether I'm out in it and experiencing it. It is constant inspiration. So those are the two big ones.
Wow, amazing. And okay, there's some noise now. But one thing that I would ask is, do you think nature and walks, and because for me, my creativity just spans when I'm around a river. Most of the great pieces that I've ever read when I was around walking or in nature or seated by a river, that kind of thing. Are we losing that because now we are urbanizing and most of those spaces are not available for most of the population? Most of the population, they say, in the next few years are going to be living in the cities. You find people who live in the city, it's such a burden sometimes to just go into nature. Do you feel we're going to lose our creativity as we know it, even as we grow into different new creative zones?
Well, I guess the thing I would say is, I know plenty of people who are inspired by metropolitan living, who love being in the city.
By the way, I think I'm one of those people. I am a city kid who loves nature, not the other way around. I used to say this to people and they never got it. Sometimes I just miss seeing a lot of people just walking and people watch and those kind of things, and I get inspiration from that. But I also get my zoning and my center from just being in nature. So, and I don't find a contradiction in any of those.
No, I don't find that to be a contradiction. I mean, I think everybody's inspired in slightly different ways. the people who love the city and are inspired by it, I don't have any trouble understanding that. I can remember maybe 20 years ago, I had a lot of impulse to move to a big city because I just thought that it was so incredibly inspiring. Like you said, people watching alone is just so incredibly inspiring. And there are so many new things in every moment when I'm observing that can, become information that leads to creative juices. I don't think we're going to lose our creativity because people move to the city. And I think that people are going to ebb and flow with that. Like I said, 20 years ago, I wanted to move to the city. Now I'm so incredibly grateful about the country. The bottom line is just that people are inspired by all kinds of different things. That's really all I was saying.
Yeah, true.
Some people are inspired by food. Some people are inspired by animals. You name it. Everybody has their own inspirations, and we're not gonna. The people moving to the city is not going to kill our inspiration. It just means that we focus on a different source for that inspiration.
So true. One thing that I would ask is this, and probably in closing, in terms of your creativity, what are some of the insights that you've come to, and probably even workflow and ethics and those kind of things that you've come to that you want to share? And also in terms of life, because there's a lot of people now who are suffering, and there's a lot of people who've lost their revenue, lost their drive, feeling very left out with the bigger society, And also there's a lot of affluent people in the world, and there's a lot of wealth. What are some of the things, some of the insights you have perhaps that you can share?
I think, I can't guarantee that this works for everybody. The thing that I have to keep reminding myself is to breathe and relax into present, to not be thinking so far in the future or so far in the past that I'm fooling myself. Those are tricks that my mind tries to play on me to pull me away into some fantasy. The only thing that's not fantasy is what's happening right now. So right now, I'm talking what looks like into my computer so that Daniel can hear me on the other side. And that's what I want to be present and what I want to breathe into. I think that's the big one for me, is just to be really present to what is happening right now. And that's one of the huge attractions of improvisational music for me, is that it's all about what's happening right now. It has nothing to do with what came in the past or what's coming up in the future. It's literally just what is under my fingers, in my voice, whatever it is that I'm using for the improvisational form, just to be present with that, breathe into it, let it happen.
Wow, amazing stuff. Do you think there's something that we've left out that probably you want to highlight?
Sure. The only thing I'd like to highlight is just my appreciation for you. So your tenacity about making this happen, even when you needed some time away from your projects and stuff like that, of continuing to connect with me to make this happen. Just have so much appreciation for you and for your questions, for your understanding of the creative process, and therefore how you are able to pull some of that out of me. And so I just want to say thank you. Kudos to you. Best wishes in your art making.
Thank you so much. You're so kind. Also, where do people find your music and your art and your passion and your interests?
Well, the best place is to start on my website, which is musefornow.com, MUZ4NOW.com. And if you Google Stan Stewart, you'll probably find me.
Wow. I'll put a link down onto some of that material so that people can enjoy and also share in this great art. You're in New York, I'm in Nairobi. We have time differences and it's taken forever to do this, some frustration. And I'd like to thank you for coming through, especially despite the frustrations. And, like I said, it would be really nice to have this conversation face to face. However, in the world we live in, we have to just do it as we are. And also people have to remember we met on Twitter. And, most people have an issue with social media, despite the challenges and limitations. And we found a way to form a great community of people who have done amazing stuff in the world and are still doing amazing stuff in the world. So I'm thankful for that.
Yes. Thank you, Daniel.
Awesome. So I'm going to let you have breakfast and probably, create some music. What are you looking forward to do today?
It's 7:26 here. So I will be, as you say, having breakfast and then starting my day job very soon. I will also look forward. I'm really hoping we will get some rain today, because if we don't, I have some chores to take care of, to water some trees.
I think that's the best close ever. Watering trees. I didn't know trees need watering, but okay, unless there's a drought, obviously, but still. Okay, so in closing, I don't know if you have a good mic, but it would be nice to hear some of your singing and playing and stuff. I don't know if you can do a little singing for us or something.
I can certainly send you some links that have all that kind of stuff.
I would really appreciate it. Yeah, that's perfect.
All right.
So thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to let you go now. And it's been a pleasure. And I thank you for your friendship and for your kindness.
Same to you, Daniel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. That has been my conversation with Stan. Stan is a great friend of mine who we met on social media, on Twitter, and we have a collective of friends in there that we have been friends for a while. You can find Stan on musicforbiznow.com. That is MUZ4 for the number BIZ.com. Thank you for joining me for this conversation. Obviously, I appreciate you. If you have a conversation that you think we need to share with the world, please reach out to me. I'm easy to find on social or whichever place you are. Thank you for listening again. My name is Daniel Duwa, and thanks for the support and encouragement and inspiration and all of it. I appreciate you. Conversation with Daniel Duwa. You're in good company. Until next time, have a good one.